Hey everyone, and welcome back to a weekly wisdom. We have these weekly wisdoms every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern. I'm Natalia Eileen, founder and CEO of C Network, and we are here to offer diversity, equity, and inclusion support to all who desire it, specifically to those who are looking to build more inclusive cultures where all of their employees, can feel seen at work. And so today's topic is about how you can leverage internal communications to build community within your workplace. We're going to jump right into it and give you 4 tips in less than 10 minutes related to how you can leverage internal communications within your organization to help build a sense of community. Now, you might be doing some of these things already. My goal is to give you a sense of some of the strategies we've seen be very effective in creating a more inclusive culture where people feel connected to a community at work. And if you're not doing some of these things, our hope is that you can start implementing them right away. Let's get started. We're talking about 4 internal communication strategies that help build a sense of community. Of course, you can do these on your own if you are working on employee engagement within your organization. Or you can also obviously work super closely with your internal communications team to make sure they're doing these things and creating that sense of community. So one of the first things that might seem a little obvious but isn't always happening is you can sprinkle employee recognition across existing internal communications channels. A lot of organizations have weekly or bi-weekly newsletters that go out, for example, sharing some of the updates about what's happening within the organization, what certain leaders are up to. This can be a great place to insert some employee recognition and to get some people out there in these internal comms that are already going out, in putting people's faces out in these existing internal communications methods. You are potentially going a long way to building a sense of community, both because people can see people that they already know being spotlighted, and they can share that and congratulate those people for being in the newsletter, or they can learn more about people that they haven't met within the organization and potentially be able to feel more connected to them when they do finally meet them in person or otherwise. That, again, is just number 1 of 4 suggestions for how you can leverage internal comms strategies to build community. And building community can go a long way to creating a more inclusive culture. Here's our next suggestion. Schedule regularly scheduled Ask Me Anything sessions with leaders. You might already be doing this. You might already have something like this happening where you have a leader who answers questions at different times of the year. Creating some structure around this and making this something that happens on a regular basis can help people feel more deeply connected to the leadership within the organization or within their team or org. Consider doing this if you yourself lead a team within the organization and don't have a forum for allowing folks to ask you anything. Being able to demonstrate transparency can help people feel more deeply connected. And this is a way that you can be building transparency into your strategy for creating a more inclusive culture where people feel connected to their community. Again, you can work closely with your internal comms team to make this happen. Perhaps there's already a forum where leaders are sharing updates. Insert some Q&A time to make it clear that transparency is a priority within your organization. And that can go a long way, again, to building that sense of community. I've only given you 2 suggestions so far. We're going through 4 ways that leaders can, or that you can, leverage internal communication strategies to create a stronger bond and a stronger community within your workplace culture. The next suggestion I have for you is all about spotlighting employees' stories. We spoke a little bit about employee recognition, and that's often very performance-based. We can also share employee stories and bios. And Here, we want to be thinking about highly trafficked locations, either digital locations or physical locations. This might be something like your kitchen in your office, having posters or some way for folks to share their story, perhaps their connection to the mission of your organization. Maybe you're already doing this in some spaces, but not in others. Consider the digitally highly trafficked spaces, the digital spaces like your wikis, your internal places where people go to get information. When was the last time you had a story in there about one of your employees and about the work that they do on a regular basis, or about their background, their history, their connection to your work and your consumers? Story building or storytelling, we know, can help build community, because when people tell stories, those listening feel more connected to them. There is more often the case a chance for them to see themselves in that person who's telling the story, because there's so often the case that we can see ourselves in people's experiences and see our own experiences highlighted in that way. This, again, could be a great way for you to build community if you don't already highlight stories somewhere, particularly in highly trafficked areas. You might want to start. The next one that I have for you is being consistent with your communication. What we find sometimes is that organizations, especially those that don't have dedicated internal comms teams, can sometimes be inconsistent about how often they're delivering information to their people. Consistency and building an expectation with your employees can actually be a great way to demonstrate or to grow a sense of trust. And we know that trust is a foundation within community building. So when you have consistent communication, whether it be a bi-weekly newsletter or a monthly meeting with the team leader, or maybe it's a way for you to send internal communication that is posted on your internal wiki or on your internal intranet, whatever the case might be. Try your best to be consistent with these. And if you are a diversity, equity, and inclusion professional, or an employee engagement professional, or generally a people leader who is working on several initiatives to try to create a more inclusive culture, consider integrating consistent communication into some of that work so that you can build a deeper sense of community. All right, I said I would give you 4 suggestions for how you can leverage internal communication strategy to build community, but I actually have a 5th bonus one for you. And this one is all about pairing in-person events with activities that encourage dialogue and engagement. I can't tell you how many times we have an in-person event. Maybe there's food, which is great, but there is nothing else to help encourage dialogue or engagement amongst those who come to this in-person event. In a workplace culture that's increasingly hybrid, many of our organizations are, in-person events can be a great time to encourage additional dialogue. So consider creating activities that make these events feel worthwhile. Now, I'm going to go through these quickly because we are running out of time, but I want to make sure you hear these 5 strategies written out or spelled out for you one by one. Sprinkling employee recognition across existing internal comms channels, regularly scheduling Ask Me Anythings or similar Q&A sessions with leaders, spotlighting employee stories and bios in digital and physical spaces, and then being consistent with your communication to build that trust and expectation. Lastly, pairing in-person events with activities that encourage dialogue and engagement. And with that, I do want to end by saying that we care deeply about creating workplace cultures where community building is centralized. We have a service called Circles that builds community within workplaces, monthly sessions with a group of employees coming together and experiencing sessions with vulnerabilities, storytelling, and connection. If you're interested in bringing Circles to your workplace culture, consider taking a look at cnetwork.com/circles. You can also schedule a consultation with us or follow us on our social media, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and our newsletter. With that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next Wednesday for another weekly